Welcome back to the Midnight Mirage School of Higher Learning, ladies and gentlemen. This tape will be about your personal evolution. We're coming on the closing of the year 2022, and in a few weeks it will be the year 2023. So what we want to do is we want to recap on the whole year, what your goals were at the beginning of the year, some of the trials and tribulations you've had this year, some of the things that you had the ability to overcome this year, the progress you made this year, or some of the things that may have distracted you this year, some of the errors that you made this year, the decisions that you made this year that were good, the decisions that you made this year that were poor. What sacrifices did you make this year? Did you see anything manifest or materialize from prior year's work? That's what I want you to do by the end of this tape. I want you to take some time to be in a place of silence and privacy, in your own spiritual sanctuary, whether that's a closet, whether that's your car, the backyard, wherever you go to get solitude. But I want you to do some introspection and do some self-analysis when it comes to your mental state and your psychology. What weaknesses did you develop this year? What strengths did you develop this year? What did you learn about yourself this year? What did you learn that is something you need to work on? These are the things that I want you to do for a homework assignment as we are in this winter season. It's pretty cold. It's chilly outside. In some places where people are listening to this, it's snowing and raining. In some places where people are listening to this, it's very, very breezy. But we want to take this winter time where it's, things are still and things are moving slow. It gets dark early. And we want to look into our own darkness, because another important principle of life is to understand, in order to reach your highest potential and in order for you to become who you're ultimately meant to become in this life, you're going to have to master and learn how to heal your hurt self and merge your lower self into your higher self. Now, what do I mean by your hurt self? Your hurt self is a part of your lower self that has been through trauma. Some of us may have had a hard childhood. Some people out there, unfortunately, may have been sexually assaulted. Some people had a hard financial upbringing. You had a hard time with money. People had poverty. Some of us have had, a hard time with lack of guidance. Maybe you didn't have your parents or you didn't have family. Some people grew up in a foster home. Some of us may have been born, quote unquote, special needs, autistic, etc. And maybe it's hard for you to express yourself in life. Whatever trauma that you've been through in your life is going to add a negative impulse to what's called the lower self or your human self, which is going to involve, your memories, your emotions, how you feel and how you think about things. And what's going to happen is when we go through trauma, what the human psyche does is it does its best to defend you. And part of that is it will take that traumatic experience. It will take the symbols that were associated with it, and it will place it in your subconscious mind. So, for example, let's say, I'll give you all myself. I've had various things that traumatized me, but one that I had, from being in certain street involvement, and, certain extracurricular activities. But I've actually had my home raided by the authorities before. And, when they raided the home, it startled us. It caught us off guard. It was very loud. And it was a very chaotic event. And I'll never forget that loud boom when the door opened and just the whole chaos energy that was unleashed by those authorities at that moment. So a certain post-traumatic stress that I'll have is like certain loud sounds, for example, especially if things are quiet, sometimes that could trigger something if I'm not careful. Because in my past, I had a part of my lower self that was hurt. It was traumatized from that experience. You know what I'm saying? It was a felony that came with it. And it made a lot of other things hard in my life. So part of the challenge that I had to, overcome is how do I merge and heal this hurt self so I don't hold on to the trauma anymore. And, I'm able to let it go and move on in my life. Because the things that are, involved with your trauma, like I say, they are the symbols that were associated with it. So usually there were certain things that you smelled at the time of the trauma. It was certain things that you heard at the time of the trauma. It was certain things that you saw at the time of the trauma. And later on, what will happen is if you don't understand what's in your subconscious mind, you could have a, sound, smell, or sight that you experience in the future, and it will trigger a certain negative reaction in you. And some of us, may not know why we have that negative reaction. So like with me, for example, whenever I hear a loud noise or something, and, even though I'm calm now, but I may still, look out my periphery or something. I know why I do that, because of prior experiences I've had. So, in other words, the hurt self, or the lower self, is not in an automatic state where it's impulsively responding to things. And I'll give you another example. So let's say you may have a woman who was cheated on by a man before. What will happen is, in the future, when she meets new men, if there are anything that were closely or even loosely associated with that experience and phenomenon when she was cheated on in her prior experiences, she immediately will basically she'll be triggered and go back into her hurt self, and the hurt lower self will take over. So she may get aggressive, she may get combative, or whatever traits that she adopted while she was in the hurt self. And that's another thing too, that when you are in the hurt self, you will adopt certain traits to defend yourself. So I'll give you another example. This is what I saw in the streets a lot. I would see certain dudes get done real dirty. He may have got jumped, may have got shot at, stabbed, something bad may have happened to him. And prior to that, he may have been a regular guy, and he wasn't a pushover, but he wasn't somebody walking around like a super macho. But after that experience, what will happen is he'll become super dark, and he'll become the ultimate gremlin street version of who he is. And it's like it'll be almost like an altered personality or an alternate character that will be developed in the psyche that he will play out while he's in that street environment, because he knows the possibility of where shit can go down, and how shit can go down. Another place you really see this is in the county jail. You see it also in the state prison and the federal prison too. You see men when they're in there, some people will adopt a certain personality or a certain thinking pattern only to be able to defend themselves and survive in a certain traumatic environment. So that's another thing too. A lot of times, in order to heal yourself, it's different things you can do to do it, but sometimes the environment can be an association as well. So you may have had, some negative events happen to you, and let's say in a certain apartment complex or a certain neighborhood you lived in. For example, I remember watching the new Unsolved Mysteries, and there was a woman who had moved into an apartment, but I want to say it was either 20 or 30 years before she moved in that same apartment. There was a woman who had stayed in there, and that woman ultimately ended up being, I think, kidnapped and killed by this man. And when the new woman moved in that apartment, she could just sense a certain, like a sad, negative, low vibration. And the woman was having, a lot of visions and dreams of someone that probably had gotten kidnapped. And what she did is the new woman who moved in the apartment, she hooked up with the local authorities, and they were trying to still solve this case. And they were shocked when this woman didn't have any details of what they had from their investigation. But a lot of what she told them in her dreams of where she thought the woman may have been buried, where the home was, where they may have taken the woman, in her premonitions in these dreams she had, it actually aligned and matched with a lot of what the police had. And the police had never told her they were investigating it, and she didn't even know that the police had found such information. So, that's just an example. Like, and what eventually had to happen is the woman had to move from that apartment because that apartment had too much trauma and too much negative association with it. So that would be an example where the trauma is associated with a certain environment. Even when you hear about, like, what people may call, a quote unquote haunted house, or it's really just a location where something very negative happened. And those that were a party to it, whenever they're in that environment, they're going to remember and feel that low vibration. And sometimes it's so powerful that even when newcomers come into that environment, They will feel a low vibration, but they may not know where it's coming from. So all these things are very, very important when you start going on your journey in life to become successful, because at the end of the day, your mind is going to be your greatest asset with your challenges that you're going to have in 2023 and beyond. And your mind is going to be your greatest asset when it comes to you making the right decisions and the right choices. And the more data and information you have, and the more understanding and knowledge you have on the information, the better decisions you'll make. Okay. So, and that's just how things go. In order to make good choices and good decisions, you have to have a lot of information. In my profession, which is accounting is basically keeping up with financial data and financial records. And when you arrange and organize the financial data and records in a certain way, it tells a story. And when you tell this story to, other business partners involved, it will allow them to make choices and decisions that can be favorable for the business. So if someone wanted to invest in, let's say, a company, and they were given a balance sheet, an income statement, a cash flow statement, what they would do is look at it. They would see how the money come in, how it goes out, what type of expenses the business has, what type of liabilities the business has, where's the debt, how much short-term and long-term debt do we have, what assets do we have, are any of them intangible? And they can get all this information, and then after they review the documents, then they can say, okay, I want to invest in this company because of A, B, and C, or I don't want to invest in the company because of A, B, and C. And they're going to feel very confident and very secure. But trying to invest in a company, but you don't have any background information, it's going to be kind of hard to make that decision. Another example of this would be somebody buying a new vehicle. And you know how they got the commercial, the Carfax. What does a Carfax do? The Carfax shows you all the previous trauma that the vehicle has been in, even if it's been rehabilitated and it's fixed now and it looks better. But nevertheless, it gives you information and a report on what the vehicle has been through. And, you may see something on the vehicle that, okay, it used to have transmission problems. And even though it may be fixed now and it's driving good now, I don't want to deal with no transmission issues, even if they do show up. So you may decide not to buy the car. But had you not had the Carfax, you wouldn't have the information to make that decision. So, so keep in mind that the more information you have on a subject or a phenomenon, and the more knowledge and understanding you have on it, the better choice and decision you're going to be able to make. All right. And, you'll get the outcome that it is that you're looking for. Because what has to happen is that once you heal your hurt self, you're able to self-analyze, you understand, the traumas that happened, why they may have happened. If it was a mistake you made, stop beating yourself up for it, because everybody made mistakes in life, and that's understood. But in other words, you go through that healing phase. So where you don't have these triggers, these post-traumatic PTSD, triggers. Like I say, every time I hear a loud sound, I go into a defensive state because I can remember 12 kicking in the door or something like that. There was a lot of psychological healing I went through and emotional healing I went through. So I don't have those issues anymore, to where now, somebody can let off a whole 100-round drum around me. I'm not going to respond a certain way, So that's what you must do. Because at the end of the day, everyone out there has a seed inside of them that has a great potential. And your internal spiritual self, or your higher self, your highest self, your highest voice, it will lead you there. But you can fly higher when you don't have any baggage. And when you have trauma in your psyche and trauma on your heart weighing you down, certain negative, low vibrational energy still weighing you down, it's going to be hard to ascend and fly in life. And that's what the mirage is. The mirage is an ascension. The mirage is flying high. The mirage is you merging the lower self into the higher self. The mirage is you becoming the best you, the highest version of you. When you were sitting as a child and you were daydreaming about who you wanted to be when you grew up, and you saw yourself looking handsome, or you saw yourself looking beautiful if you were a woman. You saw yourself with a nice car. You saw yourself with a nice occupation. and you just saw this perfect life you were living. That was you seeing your highest self. All right. And the true thing is when you see a human being behaving and operating and living a certain way, that is a manifestation of their spiritual self taking over their physical body. And that's what the goal is. And I'm going to leave you all with this. You also want to get to a certain state of maturity where your opinions, your thoughts, and your perspective on things in life, you need to learn how to put them on the back burner and get in alignment with what the truth is and what the objective reality is. All right. You know how sometimes you may hear a person say, well, I want to speak my truth. Well, my truth is an oxymoron. There is no your truth. There is an objective, universal truth. And that is the reality that will exist whether we are here or not. So I'll give you an example of that. A universal or an objective truth would be the pattern of the sun and the moon. All right. How we have 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night. That process and that natural organic function not only was going on before we were born, but it will continue to go on after we are born. And we may have certain opinions on it, certain feelings about it, certain thoughts on it, certain philosophies about it. But nevertheless, it is an objective truth outside of our perception of it. So in other words, it's real even without us. And when you learn to see that phenomenon in everything of life, then what will happen is you will become Neo of the Matrix. You will be able to see the green letters or the green numbers in everything of your life. And this is something only that the higher self can bless you with. And you just have to go through the journey. You have to go through your own midnight mirage to experience that. All right. Because the truth is that your day of success, you don't know when it's going to be. But let's just say that in the objective reality, your day of success is already set on a particular calendar date. Now, you know, me personally, I believe in a higher power, and I know that there is a divine intelligence behind creation. Just last week, for example, I had a little sinus congestion, because it started raining out of nowhere. But the way the human body is, the human body can heal itself to here we are a week later, and I feel 100% like nothing happened. I was just talking to one of the young homies earlier. Last year, he had a real bad laceration or cut in his hand to where this man finger damn near fell off. But now here we are a year later, his hand is healed up. So the human body has certain functions that are natural and that are involuntary, meaning that they're happening already and on their own without you doing it consciously, such as your heart beating and such as your lungs breathing in oxygen and breathing out. That involuntary function and intelligence, not only of the human body, but of creation itself, shows me personally, just as an individual, that there is an objective truth. And what I think, feel, and what my perspective of it is, I've just gotten to a state in my life, and I'm at a particular place of maturity where, I can put what I think and feel on the back burner. As a matter of fact, I'm not even really concerned with what I think and feel about things in life. I just want to know what the truth is. And then I do my best to get in alignment with that. All right. So that's what life is about. It's about, maturing to the point where what you think and feel about something, you're not even really concerned with it anymore. You just want to know what the truth is. Because that's what this thing is about. It's about what is the truth and getting in alignment with that. Okay. So we evolve and we're going into 2023 and beyond. And, hopefully this episode was of some use and you gained something from it. But stay tuned. I'm out.